Good day everyone, I'm Kimberly Malayo together with my groupmates, Atalia Argiles, Roxine De La Cruz, Eliza Balais, and Shireen Ramos. And we are Group 1 from MM22. Today, we were going to discuss about the Module 3, International Trades Made Between Countries. First, here is the International Trade Agenda. Number 1 is World Trade Organization. The World Trade Organization, or WTO, is the only global institution that governs international trade rules between nations. It ensures that trade flows smoothly, predictable, and freely, helping importers and exporters operate in a secure and transparent environment. The WTO was established on January 1, 1995, following the Uruguay round of negotiations under the General Agreements on Tariff and Trade, or GATT, which originated in 1947 through the Bretton Woods Agreements. The WTO inherited and expanded GATT's framework incorporating trade in services, intellectual property, and agriculture while continuing to address issues like anti-dumping and subsidies. Its key functions including administering trade agreements, providing a negotiation forum, resolving disputes, in monitoring national policies, offering technical assistance to developing countries, and cooperating with other global organizations. Operating on principles of non-discrimination, transparency, and fairness, the WTO aims to create a level playing field for all member nations and promote sustainable development. Despite facing criticism over its impact on developing countries, labor standards, and the environment, the WTO remains central to shaping global trade policies. Its dispute settlement mechanism is especially vital, ensuring that countries comply with agreed rules and obligations. The WTO is the main international organization that manages trade rules between countries. It helps make global trade smoother, fairer, and more predictable by reducing barriers, resolving disputes, and promoting cooperation. It was created in 1995 after the Uruguay round of negotiations and continues to guide trade in goods, services, and intellectual properties. For example, in dispute resolution, when the Philippines and Thailand had an disagreement over cigarette exports, the WTO helped settle the issue through its legal process, ensuring both sides followed fair trade rules. Number 2, for tariff reduction, thanks to WTO agreements, many countries, including the Philippines, have lowered tariff on imported agricultural products, making food more affordable and trade more competitive. Next is the real-world example. The World Trade Organization, or WTO, is a global institution made up of 164 member countries. Responsible for managing the rules of trade between nations, its main goal is to ensure that international trade flows smoothly, predictable, and freely. It provides a platform for governments and negotiate trade agreements, resolve disputes, and reduce trade barriers to promote fair competition and economic growth. The WTO also enforces agreements that guide how countries interact in global commerce, including rules on services, intellectual property, and agriculture. One of its most important functions is its dispute settlement mechanism, which helps resolve trade conflicts between member countries. Additionally, the WTO supports sustainable development and encourages environmentally friendly trade practices. So, the World Trade Organization, or WTO, is a global group of 164 countries that sets and enforces rules for international trade. Its main goal is to make trade between nations smoother, fairer, and more predictable. It helps countries negotiate agreements, settle disputes, and reduce trade barriers to support global economic growth. Examples: for trade dispute resolution, when the European Union and United States disagreed over aircraft subsidies, Airbus versus Boeing, the WTO stepped in to mediate and resolve the conflict through its legal process. The next example is tariff reduction agreement. Through WTO negotiations, developing countries like the Philippines have benefited from lower tariffs on exports like bananas and garments, making them more competitive in global markets. And that's it. Let me call Atalia Argiles to explain how does the WTO or World Trade Organization and real world function.
Thank you, Ms. Kimberly Malayo. We will now proceed with an analysis of the World Trade Organization and its real-world functions. Imagine the World Trade Organization, or the WTO, as the International Sports League for Trade. It has 164 plus member countries all on the same team, trying to play a game called global commerce. The World Trade Organization's main job is to set the rule book, the agreements on how countries can buy and sell things to each other, and make sure the game is fair, predictable, and as smooth as possible. When big decisions need to be made, like adding a new rule or changing an old one, all the member countries have to agree through consensus. It's like a town hall meeting where everyone gets a say. The Director General is the league commissioner, but the real power lies with the members themselves. If one country thinks another is cheating, they can file a complaint. The WTO then steps in as the referee to settle the score. Sample: think of it this way: France and the US are trading partners. France decides to slap a massive tax or a tariff on all American-made cars. The US believes this is an illegal move that violates the fair play rules. The US takes the the US takes the case to the WTO, which acts as the judge. If the WTO finds France guilty, it tells France to remove the tax. If France refuses, the WTO authorizes the US to hit back with its own proportionate retaliatory tax on French goods. It's the international version of a penalty kick. Next is free trade at what cost? The WTO's goal of free trade often conflicts with the country's right to protect its people, health, and environment, leading critics to question if global profit is prioritized over domestic welfare. For instance, WTO rules strongly protect pharmaceutical patents, potentially preventing a poor country from accessing a cheap, life-saving generic drug. This reveals the core tension. Domestic priorities like environmental or labor standards can be overridden as illegal barriers to trade in the pursuit of efficiency and profit. Sample: when a developing nation bans imports based on strict anti-pollution standards, the exporting country often challenges it at the WTO. The organization, designed to prevent non-trade reasons from slowing commerce, frequently struggles to uphold such legitimate environmental protection measures. Next is the objectives and operation. The WTO took over from the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, expanding its scope to cover services and intellectual property in addition to goods, with 6 clear missions including updating rules and helping developing nations. Its operation is anchored by the most favored nation principle, which is the MFN, the Golden Rule of Trade. The MFN principle mandates that if a member grants a preferential trade deal, such as lower tariff to one trading partner, it must automatically and immediately extend that exact same deal to every other WTO member. This essential commitment prevents special exclusive trade advantages and ensures a level playing field for all members. Sample: playing fair: if a country A drops its import tax on country B's banana from $1 to 1/10 of a dollar, the MFN rule immediately requires country A to drop the banana import to 1/10 of a dollar for all other WTO members like country C and country D as well. This prevents any country from holding a permanent exclusive advantage. Next is resolution of trade disputes. The WTO manages its formal dispute settlement system, often called the Supreme Court of Trade, which involves initial consultations followed by an independent panel. Crucially, WTO rulings are automatic and binding. Unlike the previous system where the losing country could simply veto the decision. This system, which also includes an appellate body, ensures that global trade rules are legally enforceable obligations, giving the WTO's verdicts real teeth. The sample here, the final verdict. After a country alpha complains a WTO panel rules that country beta subsidy for its solar panel industry is illegal, if country beta fails to fix its policy within a set time, the WTO authorizes country alpha to impose retaliatory tariffs on country beta's exports, enforcing the rule of law by hitting the offending country financially. The analysis is now complete. Ms. Roxine de la Cruz will now take over and explain the trade policy reviews.
Thank you, Ms. Atalia Argilias. I'm Roxine de la Cruz and I'm about to discuss to you the World Trade Organization. So, the WTO Trade Policy Review ensures transparency, accountability, and stability in global trade. Each member of countries' trade policies are examined depending on their importance in world trade. For an instance, if the Philippines undergo review, the WTO Secretariat might analyze its tariff rates, import licensing, and agricultural policies, while the Philippines government could submit its own report highlighting reforms and development priorities. Together, these reviews allow other WTO or World Trade Organization members to better understand, trust, and engage in trade relation with the Philippines. Also, here in PPT, the WTO also seeks to increase awareness of the extent and effects of trade distorting policies, a goal that it accomplishes through an annual notification requirements and through a policy review mechanism. Notices of all changes in members' trade and trade-related policies must be published and made accessible to their trading partners. The WTO reviews the trade policies of the world's four largest traders, the European Union, the United States, Japan, and China, once every 2 years. The policies of the next 16 largest traders once every 4 years, and the policies of all other traders once every 6 or more years. After extensive consultation with the other member country under review, the WTO Secretariat publishes its review together with a companion report by the country's government. So, the process thus monitors the extent of which members are meeting their commitments and provides information on newly opened markets. To shortest term, its primary goal is to ensure trade flows and as freely as possible, improving living, creating jobs, and promoting sustainable development worldwide. Next is assessment. It talks about GATT and WTO. What is GATT and WTO? GATT is General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, while WTO is World Trade Organization. The pace of international economic integration via GATT and WTO rounds of multilateral trade negotiation that has been slower and less comprehensive than some members would prepare. Beginning in the late 1990s, the WTO was the target of fierce criticism, opponents of globalization, And in particular, those opposed to the growing power of multinational corporations argued that the World Trade Organization infringes upon national sovereignty and promotes the interest of largest corporations at the expense of smaller local firms struggling to cope with the import competition. Environmental and labor groups, especially those from wealthier countries, have claimed that the trade liberalization leads to environmental damage and harm the interest of low-skilled unionized workers. Protests by the other groups at WTO ministerial meetings such as the 1999 demonstration in Seattle, Washington, US, which involved approximately 50,000 people, became larger and more frequent, in part because the development of the internet and social media made large-scale organizing and collective action easier. In response to such criticism, supporters of the World Trade Organization claim that regulating trade is an efficient way to protect the environment and labor rights. Meanwhile, some WTO members, especially developing countries, resisted attempts to adopt rules that would allow for sanctions against countries that failed to meet strict environmental and labor standards, arguing that they would amount to veiled protectionism. Despite these criticisms, however, WTO admission remained attractive for non-members, as evidenced by the increase in number of members after 1995. Most significantly, China entered the WTO in 2001 after years of accession negotiations. The conditions for Chinese membership were in some ways more restrictive than those for developing countries, reflecting the concerns of some WTO members that the admission of such a large and still somewhat planned economy might have an overall negative effect on free trade. What is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN? The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, is a regional organization of 10 Southeast Asian and Pacific Rim countries that was set up to promote cultural, economic, and political development in the region. ASEAN is an official observer of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, a 1995 agreement that created a nuclear-free zone in Southeast Asia. Since 1993, the bloc has been cutting tariffs in an effort to create an ASEAN free trade area, which the group's website describes as virtually established. As a result, intra-ASEAN trade has risen from 19% in 1993 to 24% in 2015. As of 2016, ASEAN's 10 economies represent $2.5 trillion in combined gross domestic product, or GDP, around 3% of global total. According to the World Bank, their combined population is 639 million people, around 9% of the global total. That will be explained by Ms. Eliza Balais.
The next discussion is membership. ASEAN has 10 member countries. First is Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. It also has one observer, Papua New Guinea. The next is history. ASEAN was formed on August 8, 1967 in Bangkok, Thailand. It started with 5 original members: Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. Other countries joined later: Brunei in 1984, Vietnam in 1995, Laos and Myanmar in 1997, Cambodia in 1999. Before ASEAN, there was another group called the Association of Southeast Asia, ASA, formed in 1961. For objectives is ASEAN has two main goals. First is promote economic growth and cultural development through cooperation and partnership. Second is maintain peace and stability by respecting justice, the rule of law, and the United Nations Charter. In 1995, ASEAN leaders confirmed that peace and shared prosperity should always be their focus. For fundamental principles, according to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, signed in 1976, ASEAN countries agree to respect each nation's independence and identity, avoid interfering in other countries' internal matters, avoid using force or threats, settle disagreements peacefully, cooperate effectively, protect each country's freedom from interference or coercion. ASEAN is all about working together for peace, stability, and development in Southeast Asia. It emphasizes equality, respect, and non-interference in each other's internal affairs while encouraging cooperation to grow stronger as a region. Next is political cooperation. ASEAN political and security dialogue aims to promote regional peace, stability, and resilience through cooperation among member countries. This cooperation is based on principles such as self-confidence, self-reliance, mutual respect, and solidarity, helping to form a strong community of nations in Southeast Asia. Some major political accords and declarations that ASEAN has made over the years are listed in the document. These agreements cover a wide range of issues, from peace and neutrality to counter terrorism and nuclear weapons. These accords are pivotal in ensuring collective actions to address regional challenges such as ASEAN Declaration in 1967 marked the formal establishment of ASEAN, creating the foundation for regional cooperation. Zone of Peace, Freedom, and Neutrality Declaration in 1971 set out the region's commitment to remain neutral in global conflicts. Declaration of ASEAN Concord in 1976 focused on fostering peace and economic stability in Southeast Asia. Treaty of Amity Cooperation in Southeast Asia in 1976 established guidelines for peaceful relation and non-interference between ASEAN member states. ASEAN Vision 2020 in 1977 defined long-term goals for political, economic, and security cooperation in the region. The document also highlights ASEAN efforts in counter-terrorism, security, cooperation, and its defense strategy through various declarations and agreements. The core of ASEAN approach lies in its emphasis on diplomacy, dialogue, and mutual respect as seen in its various initiatives to create a more peaceful, stable, and prosperous Southeast Asia. The last point, which mentioned the cooperation for a dynamic ASEAN community, underscored the importance of maintaining strong regional ties and responding to emerging global challenges. Developments related to ASEAN political cooperation from 2017 to 2019, emphasizing issues such as security, counterterrorism, and nuclear non-proliferation. Next is developments. 2019, March 1, 2019, the 10th meeting of the ASEAN-US Joint Cooperation Committee took place in Jakarta. This meeting focused on strategic priorities like transnational crime, cybersecurity, and developments in the US-North Korea relationship and US and 2018 developments. January 5, 2018, Dato Lim Jock Hoi became the new ASEAN Secretary General, serving from 2018 to 2022. March 18, 2018, ASEAN and Australia signed a Memorandum of Understanding on counterterrorism while expressing serious concerns about North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. April 2018, the ASEAN Centre for Energy released a report discussing the establishment of nuclear power plants in ASEAN countries, exploring the potential for civilian nuclear energy in the region. September 25, 2018, Thailand ratified the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, becoming the 10th ASEAN country to do so. November 2018, the 33rd ASEAN Summit was held in Singapore. The summit included the ASEAN-US Summit, where US Vice President Mike Pence highlighted concern about North Korea weapons and facilities, and 27 developments. February 14, 2017, ASEAN voiced concern over North Korea missile tests on February 12, 2017 as part of its broader regional security priorities. And March 2, 2017, the 24th meeting of the ASEAN Joint Cooperation Committee took place in Jakarta. And March 8, 2017, ASEAN raised concern over North Korea's ballistic missile tests, emphasizing the importance of peace and security on the Korean Peninsula. 20, April 29 to 30, 2017, the 30th ASEAN Summit was held in Manila, Philippines, with discussion on regional security and counterterrorism. The next reporter is Shireen Ramos, who will discuss the last topic.
Thank you, Eliza Balais. So that leads us to our final topic, the three pillars of the ASEAN community, namely the ASEAN Political Security Community, APSC, the ASEAN Economic Community, AEC, and the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, ASCC, are the most crucial areas deemed necessary for the progress and evolution of ASEAN and its peoples. The blueprints of these three communities have been carefully formulated to detail specific strategic objectives and actions which intend to achieve progress and positive development in their respective areas. So, the first one is the ASEAN Political Security Community or APSC. So, this pillar is all about keeping the region peaceful and stable. So, ang main goal po nito is to create community where all countries follow the same rules and share the same values. It works to make ASEAN a cohesive and resilient region where people feel safe. So a very important part of this pillar is the promotion of human rights and good governance. Ensuring na po yung mga tao are treated fairly and may boses sila in a just and democratic environment. For example, when two ASEAN countries have a disagreement, they solve it through peaceful talks instead of fighting. They keep this keep the region stable and safe for everyone. The next one is the ASEAN Economic Community or AEC. So recognizing the importance of equitable economic development for all peoples, the action under Initiative for ASEAN Integration include human resource development, information and communication technologies, capacity building, poverty reduction and improvement in the quality of life. In addition, in enhancing the food, agriculture, and forestry trade, the health of the peoples is not forgotten. And in fostering a culture of competitiveness, consumer protection is threatened to establishing the ASEAN Coordinating Community on Consumer Protection and establishing a network of a consumer protection agency to facilitate information sharing and exchange. So this pillar focuses on building a strong and united economy for all member countries. So it works to help uplift the poor and improve everyone's quality of life. So pinapadali din nito ang trade of goods like food and wood, making it safer and more efficient. Furthermore, it protects you as a consumer by making sure na safe ang mga products na ginagamit. The main idea is to create prosperity and gawing mas better ang buhay for all ASEAN people. So for example, because of AEC, you can now buy Thai mangoes or Vietnamese coffee easily in the Philippine supermarket at lower prices. So this makes product more affordable for all ASEAN citizens. Lastly is the ASEAN Sociocultural Community or ASCC. So the ASCC is adopted to realize a people-oriented, socially responsible ASEAN community with the view of achieving solidarity, unity, and a common identity as well as building a sharing and caring society. The characteristics envisaged in the ASCC blueprint are human development, social welfare and protection, social justice and rights, ensuring environmental sustainability, building the ASEAN identity, and narrowing the development gap. All these issues, except for building the ASEAN identity, pertain directly to human rights. So this pillar is all about people and building a caring community. So layunin nito ang na magkaroon po ng sense of unity and a common identity among all ASEAN citizens. It focuses on important social areas like education, pagtulong sa mga hirap and elderly, and ensuring social justice and rights for everyone. It also works to protect our environment. So ang goal nito is to build a sharing and caring society kung saan walang maiiwan. So for example, ASEAN student exchange programs allow Filipino students to study in Malaysia and Malaysian students to study here in the Philippines. This help build friendship and understanding among ASEAN youth. So that's it. That's all. And I hope, thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. Thank you.